Okay, Tucker's going to give us number 3 of his 10-point new party manifesto with Marjorie Taylor and Tom Massey. He's going to say the third point of his new political manifesto is America needs to be productive. Before he starts, I want to give you the definition of what productive is. Productive means achieving good results, making a lot of work or goods or growing things in large amounts. It describes people who work hard, land that grows heavy crops, or meetings that solve many problems. That is what it means to be productive. Tucker, now you can take us down your merry road.
Productive. A decent country is productive. Productive means that you make things worth having, from which you derive joy, that improve the lives of other people, or that just are inherently beautiful. There was a thing called art at one point that was appreciated because it was beautiful, and that's the only reason it was appreciated. It didn't do anything, but it uplifted people's spirits, and that was considered a worthy end in itself. All these assumptions have kind of been erased over the past century in stages, and certainly in the last 20 years, the idea that it is your duty and pleasure to produce something worth having has kind of been lost and been replaced by the idea that the point of work is to make money to pay for all these things, mostly to pay interest on all these things. It's part of the debt cycle. And that it's your duty to do that. And
Well, you know what, Tucker? Again, I'm just going through your whole cycle, and I see what you're trying to do build with your building blocks. Fairness to sovereignty from debt, and now that you're free from debt, you can be productive. But I submit to you, you're saying that people are not don't have the wherewithal or the desire to be productive and create things of beauty. I disagree. I think there's millions of people with great ideas to make things a lot better for everyday Americans. A lot of people have dreams and visions in their head. But when you are distracted by life, when you are distracted by the economic pressures, the societal issues, the systemic unfairness that people go through, it's hard to be creative, Tucker. It's hard to be creative. For people to be in that level of productivity you're talking about a society on one accord, economically, politically, spiritually, where people can at least feel free to inspire themselves to create. What's your thoughts, people?
you should forego, I don't know, getting married and having kids in order to do that, to basically to service the debt. And you can argue about, how sick that is. Obviously, it's very sick. But you can't elide past the core assumption, which is that it doesn't matter what you make. And that's a lie. It matters very much what you make.
Yeah, it does.
And if you doubt that, consider how we judge past civilizations. We judge them by what they make. In fact, there are many civilizations about which we know nothing, not even their name, not their language, nothing. All we have is the record, the physical record of the things they made, and we name the civilization after that, after the stone knife points or the bowls that they made. The whole civilization, to archaeologists, is summed up by their products, by the fruits of their labor, the work of their hands. But that's true for all civilizations, and we judge them, and we are right to judge them by the quality and the ingenuity and, yes, the beauty of the things they made. So if you wake up one morning and your country is really only producing weapon systems and surveillance technology, both of which are probably employed in the service of evil, so there's that, but both of which don't really exist long term. Weapons technology is by definition expended. Surveillance technology is just ones and zeros. You're in a bad place. If your main drivers of the economy are those two things, plus real estate, reselling the same land over and over, and finance, lending money at interest, the sum total is what? Nothing worth bragging about.
Well, I have to agree with you on that, Tucker. But again, I have to say, if we're talking about a people and a nation that wants to create, our country for decades now have moved people away from having free thought, in my opinion. In other words, to be able to have their minds free enough to dream, to create, to pull something together, to find the niche, to find their spot. And I think that's been done by television. I think television and I think the internet has taken away a lot of creativity. I think right now people are the ones in power, okay, the ones sitting behind the cabal, if you will, have moved us away from a period and a season in our world of creation to technology. And I think that's where it's going away. And technology is not something that you can look at and say was created. It's something that's there. We need it. We use it. But I do agree. The art of inspiring people to create has been lost. But it's been lost because people are in the weeds of life. You have to get people up so that their minds can be free of the stress and the strain of life, so that they're able to feel that they can dream again. That's my point on it, people. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
And people can feel that. There's been, of course, this long debate about the manufacturing sector. Well, of course, it wasn't a debate. There were a couple wackos like Ross Perot and Pat Buchanan are like, wait, we need to make things. Oh, shut up. You don't understand capitalism, said Ben Shapiro's parents or whoever was arguing at the time. No, you don't understand capitalism. It's really about efficiency. And it's cheaper to make it over there, and then we reap the benefits. And Buchanan and people like him would say, but don't we kind of lose something? We don't make anything? Oh, shut up. You don't understand economics. But you don't have to understand economics to know that they were absolutely right. That you are judged by the things you make, but you also judge yourself by the things you make.
Now, here's the point to that. What happened to all the manufacturing jobs? Well, and if you want to talk about it, it's been a systemic problem. But let's be honest, and let's go by the numbers, people. Biden created more manufacturing jobs than Trump. Under Trump, we lost manufacturing jobs. Under past presidents and their leadership, we lost a lot of Republican and Democrat. We lost a lot of manufacturing jobs because we pawn off all the things that we can make here because it's cheaper over there. And the reason why it's cheaper over there is because of the tax breaks that we give the rich people here that pass that cost on to the Americans here, that makes the products more expensive to make here. So they charge us a high price for something that they're getting cheap somewhere else from some country where people don't even have to speak English, no offense, to make it. That's the brackets. That's the mechanics of what the lack of manufacturing is in America.
Which is to say your dignity and self-respect come from doing something useful and or beautiful, something worth having. At the height of the Cold War, let's say in the 1970s, what was the Soviet Union famous for? Now, of course, they had a larger nuclear arsenal than ours. They controlled a greater landmass than ours. It was enormous. But the one thing they didn't do that we did do was produce beautiful, useful, well-made things. American craftsmanship was probably close to its peak. Certainly its reputation for craftsmanship was at its peak. And the Soviet Union, meanwhile, churned out crap. You didn't want a Soviet car. It ran on like kerosene and broke down at red lights. Like it was a joke because the system was a joke. And we knew the system was a joke because of what they made. So what do you say about a system that makes money lending and real estate speculation and flock cameras?
You got nothing to show for it. What I mean, most American buys foreign cars, right? Because those countries are known by the cars that they create. Unfortunately, we as Americans take pride in those foreign cars as being safer to drive. Now, there's something missing by the American automotive manufacturers we have in America, that most Americans are not buying their vehicles. That needs to be investigated. But the bigger point is what Tucker's saying. We need to be known for who we are. What we create is a picture of the people we are. What we make is a picture of who we are. If all we're making is bombs, then all we are is warmongers. Get my point?
And Tomahawk missiles, like that's it? That's what a great nation makes? It's shameful and very hard to fix, by the way. And there have been well-intended efforts to fix it. And again, this is the problem with beginning with the technocratic solution rather than the undergirding principle. The undergirding principle is you have to make beautiful, enduring, well-made things in order to respect yourself and have a nation worth defending. That's the fact.
I mean, you can take
Let's
pride
start there.
in it.
What do you do about
I
it?
understand your
Well,
point.
reindustrializing is hard.
Yeah.
One place you could start is with our natural resources, the greatest of which is called farmland. America is the greatest, most productive farmland in the world. Mm-hmm. What does that produce? Well, food. Why do we need food? Well, to survive. That's not a small thing. That's not an ancillary fact about America. That's the core fact about America. Mm-hmm. America the Beautiful. Notes our fruited plains. What does that mean? Land that produces fruit. Mm-hmm. That was considered really significant. It's something to boast about. In fact, sing a song that almost replaced the national anthem. Having a fruited plain was something that people were really thrilled to know.
Okay.
Now, the fruited plain is just a place to put data centers and windmills.
And whose fault is that? Who destroyed the farmers? We got to be honest with ourselves. Who destroyed the farmers? Who destroyed the ranchers? Who destroyed those people with promises and tariffs that put them all out of business so that they had to make the decisions to get in debt or to bring money in by selling their land to data centers? Trump did that. Trump destroyed the farmers. Trump destroyed the farmland. Trump destroyed the ranchers. One could almost say that it was a maniacal Machiavellian plan to finally break the farmers to sell their land to get the data centers. And that seems really conspiracy. What do you think?
Make ethanol. In other words, it's a resource farm for the rest of the world, which is what America is becoming. Our resources are collateral on our debt. And by the way, if we ever default, we'll find out whether we can keep the Great Lakes, the largest store of fresh water in the world, or are those part of the collateral? That's where we're going. Unless Americans reorient around the things that actually matter based on what we have been given. And the main thing that we've been given is America, the landscape.
Okay.
Not America, the abstract idea,
Yeah.
the theory, the free market capitalism,
Yeah.
the defending democracy. No. The mountains and Big Sur and those fruited plains and
And China owns it.
the
and
entire
China
thing,
owns
the
us
continent
now.
that we got. That's the prettiest, most productive piece of land in the world.
I agree.
And so you might start with farms. You might start by actually growing the world's best food, which we no longer do by and
But
large.
you've got to rebuild the farming industry that was destroyed by the 2 terms of Donald Trump, who promised the ranchers and the farmers, listen, we're getting beef from out of the country right now, when our ranchers are the best. Who did that? Trump. The farmers can't even survive right now because they can't ship their products right now. Whose fault is that? Trump. Can everybody say at one time, Trump destroyed the farmers? Let's go. Trump destroyed, go ahead, you can say it, the farmers.
At least for the mass market. But you could, it wouldn't be too hard. Well, that would be socialist if you had a federal agricultural policy. Well, we already do. And we have for almost 100 years. At scale, almost no big farmers could exist without the agriculture department, the ag department. But what is that department doing? It's encouraging them to do things that are totally disconnected from the core mission, which is to grow great and healthy food.
No, they're not encouraging them to do it. They're breaking them. The agricultural department right now, the secretary of that under this Trump administration and the first Trump administration, they're forcing the farmers to sell their land. They're forcing their farmers to give up their land for data centers and other things by making it impossible for them to build, to create, to sell their product, to grow. That's been done by the Trump administration, people.
That's not some like maha priority for like yoga moms in Marin County. It's not some esoteric rich person thing. It's food. It's the basic thing, which along with water and energy are the three things you need to build any society, to live. And so if you reoriented your mind around reality, you would conclude that the Great Plains are way more important than BlackRock, and no, BlackRock shouldn't own the Great Plains. On a basic level, they're more important. You can't live without them, and they could be great. Why is it hard to have pride in farms? Why should that be considered the work of immigrant labor? You can mechanize the farms, you can make them efficient, but why wouldn't you grow good food on them? Why wouldn't you?
They were growing good food on them. You're not. He's talking about a manifesto that Trump destroyed. Now he wants to rebuild on it. I get it. Trump destroyed the farmers. You need to say that.
Be proud of them. Why wouldn't you talk about them in a non-sentimental way? Not the proud American farmer fleeing the Dust Bowl for California or some John Steinbeck nostalgia trip, but in a real way. This is unbelievable. Nobody has what we have. And what are we doing with it? Growing ethanol? Putting in windmills that don't work? Are you joking? Shame on you. You're desecrating the greatest thing we have, which is our land.
That's Donald Trump. Shame on you, Donald Trump. You're desecrating the most valuable thing that we have, which is our land. Because you screwed over the ranchers and you screwed over the farmers twice. Twice.
And why are we doing that? Because the people doing it are not tied to the land or even to the nation in any way. They see it once again, not as a farm, but as a resource farm. And the rest of us go along with it, and we shouldn't. And it begins with just saying so out loud. No, you can't do that to a farm, to a ranch. You can't do that to the most beautiful thing we have.
Then why didn't you say it when Trump was doing all these tariffs? Why didn't you say it when you heard the ranchers cry out that they were being broke, going broke, inability to grow, inability to sell soybeans? Why weren't you crying out then? Because Trump was doing it.
Which is the thing that God made, our natural surroundings? Not allowed. Home ownership has always been, and that leads to the next thing that America always has.
Okay, so that ties up his productive manifesto. I don't have a problem with farming. I think that, to be productive, we have to start there. That's easy to start. We need to rebuild our farmlands. We need to rebuild our heartlands. We need to get people back involved in growing things. And I think that we can even do that, as a matter of fact, in our backyards. We should teach our kids how to grow tomatoes and how to grow corn and how to grow cucumbers. My mother, we did a garden every year. So I think there should be something in that where we can start doing that ourselves as well, as a community even maybe. So I agree with you on that, but I also believe that in this thing of fairness, we have to help other Americans, and we have to listen to other Americans that may have ideas that seem so foreign to us because they're their ideas. But when you put them together, it can make something great. Creativity is the best thing for America. Yes, let's build up our farms, but let's help people dream again. What do you guys think about his productive manifesto? We're going to get into the next manifesto next.